Lesson 4, Adobe Dreamweaver CS4. In this session, we're going to be looking at the cascading style sheet box model, or it's sometimes called the CSS Box Model. You're going to use your style sheet. You're going to add a style to your style sheet to add a custom formatted paragraph on your home page. So far, we've got index.html. Last session, we added a few elements, a heading, a couple of paragraphs, and we have already made this cascading style sheet file, but we haven't made any changes to it. That looks a little bit like this, with lots of different styles all in pink, which essentially are saying how everything on that page should look. Before we can probably make progress on our page, it's probably worth discussing how it's actually laid out. On the page, you'll see these little yellow boxes, which you can click on, or you can actually find them by clicking on anywhere on the page and using the breadcrumbs coming out of the paragraph. You'll see that the next tag, or the next element along, actually has that funny name that we talked about last lesson. Click on that and you can see this one has got the name main content. It's a divider with the ID main content, and you can see the word hash main content written here. And actually you can see its name is written in this drop down box here. It's called main content. The one on the left, you can see I've clicked on a paragraph, but the paragraph is inside sidebar 1. And actually you can see that sidebar 1, if I click on it, lives inside another one here called container. And if I click on container, you can actually see container is laid out across the whole page. Also at the top, there's a header. Or at least there's one called hash header who lives in the container, and one called footer. Using Paint, I've made a little drawing of how the default template that we used from lesson 1 actually looks. This is the ID here called container. This one, it's the one that stores the whole page. At the top, there's one called header. That's where we're going to be putting the banner. Sidebar for the hyperlinks, the main content where we're going to be putting information, and the footer. Now, obviously, something in the style sheet is telling something in the style sheet here is telling the index page how to lay everything out, because obviously somewhere has to tell heading that it's there and not over on the left. And actually something has to say that this is on the left of that, and so on, and it's got a grey background and the text is of a different format, and so on. And the way I want you to do this is I want you to search on Google the following term. I want you to search for the CSS Box Model. So just type CSS Box Model. It's going to take you to a website that you very much should bookmark called w3schools.com. We're going to go there to the CSS Box Model website, and it's going to talk a little bit about how the box model of what cascading style sheets use to lay their content out. Every single element on your page, from paragraphs all the way through to dividers, headings, pictures even, uses this same model where the element is laid out in the middle of the page here. Then there's some padding, to which you can give a little bit of spacing between the elements, a border, which may or may not be there, and finally a margin. I'm just going to say that every page uses this, and every single part of any piece of website design uses this concept. Probably worth at this point copying a picture of that down into your book. So moving on, what we're going to do is press try it yourself. Now it's given us a nice little example here that we're going to use on our page. It's given us a little page on the right, which is a preview of the code on the left. What we've got is a little piece of style code, only a very small piece of it, in line with the HTML document, which is saying that there is anything on your page with the tag div, which stands for divider, has a background color of light gray. That's the light gray. The width, the border, which is 25px, which is pixels in solid green. That's the green you can see. A bit of padding. If you go back to the box model here, you can see that padding is the distance between the content and the edge of the divider. So you can see that's here. This is the padding. And then there's the border, which has a width. And then there's a margin, which is why this is actually pushed in from the edge. So this is what we're going to do. Firstly, we're going to highlight the style sheet section, which is everything from div down to the curly braces down there. We're going to copy it, we're going to go to Dreamweaver, and we're going to go into our style sheet, which I've already opened, but I'll open it again just to show you where you get it from. You should have it down here in Files. You should have toColFixed lt header.css. There's lots of style sheet information already in there, which is making the layout of your web page look the way it is. We're going to go right down the bottom, put a new line in, and paste it in down the bottom. Now, this will have messed your page up quite a lot, because if you remember what I said, your page was already made up of lots of dividers with different names. If every single one of these dividers is going to be formatted the same way as, well, this green box, this is going to be the effect you'll have. So let's have a look at that. Let's save this. Well, I can save it just by pressing save there, and have a little look at your web page. Well, this is what it looks like, which has messed up a lot of the formatting and put that style effect around that divider, which isn't what you necessarily wanted to do. So what we're going to do is not tell your style sheet to actually apply to all dividers, but we're going to tell it to apply only to dividers with a special name. And any divider with a special name gets a hash in front of it, which you've seen earlier, these little hashes. And we're going to call this one hash, or I don't know, funky green box. So anything that happens to be called funky green box on your web page will now have this formatting. So again, we'll save that, and we'll go back to our web page, which I just double clicked on. Now, of course, nothing has the formatting called funky green box. So let's go get something. I'm just going to use this text from here because that would be quite nice to use. On this little diagram in this example, the style sheet was being applied to this piece of code here, all the way from the div all the way to the slash div, and I'm going to copy it. I go back to my web page in Dreamweaver. Now I could paste that in there, but these are HTML tags, and this is the design front end of Dreamweaver, so actually we don't want that content put in there, so I'm going to undo that. We actually want to put that in the code view in Dreamweaver, making sure I'm not putting it here, I'm actually putting it on a new line, so I pressed return to make a new paragraph. So we go to the code, and you can see this is what Dreamweaver is telling me is a blank line. I can put it inside the blank line, but I'm going to actually, in between the two paragraphs, after where it says this is another paragraph, I'm just going to place it in there on line 38. You should be able to put it wherever you like. So I'm going to paste, and you can see this is the divider. I'm just going to put it on its own, so I'm going to isolate it so you can all visually see it. These blank lines won't appear. They're not actually on your page. But this is the text I copied. Now you'll remember I said on the style sheet over here that we're going to apply that effect to funky green box, or the thing called funky green box. I'll go back to index, and currently it's called div, and it's not called funky green box. We do want a divider because we want this text to be divided up on its own, but we're going to give it space id equals, in speech marks, that's shift 2, and you can already see that it's appeared there because this page is linked to the style sheet, but I'm going to write it anyway, funky green box. Obviously it's important to close the speech mark. That's it. So this is a divider. All this code here is stored inside a box or a divider with the name funky green box. So if I were to go back here somewhere, obviously I'll draw a funky green box for you. It will have put the funky green box inside the main content. So that's what I'm expecting has happened. So again, I'll just save both of those. I can just save and go back to the design so you can see it. And yeah, there it is. There it is. I can click on it, and you can see this is a divider with the ID funky green box. And you could have, to be fair, I could have actually just highlighted a piece of text. And this is how easy it could be. I should just be able to highlight those things and give them an ID, and you can modify them separately that way.